Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth on the Guadalupe Radio Network in North Texas. Catholic radio for your soul. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
Welcome to The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us as we journey together on this pilgrimage of faith. And now your host, Monsignor Charles Pope.
That's good to join you today. It's going to be a full show. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Gaza right now for Roman Catholics who live there. He said there are no Roman Catholics there. Yes, there are. I'm going to look at some interesting story about a Catholic trade school that's opening. I'm really supportive of that idea. And then there's a Vatican survey that's the strange case of the missing Vatican survey. It was up online. And it didn't go so well, and it suddenly got yanked down. I wonder why. And then we're going to talk a little bit about something going on in Arizona. Again, more about the abortion legislation and things that they're going to try to push one way or the other on Election Day. So, Matthew, I greet you, and here we are.
Yes, good afternoon. I've noticed you avoided going into the Olympics opening ceremonies. I feel like we're all already done with that whole thing. Well, unless you're focusing on reparation for it, nobody really wants to think about it, right?
There you go. I'm kind of in that category at this point. I am deeply grieved that, as far as I know, Pope Francis said not a word.
Yeah.
And that whatever minor thing was said from the Vatican was actually somewhat supportive of the action. They're trying to find Jesus. Well, they're looking in the wrong places, I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, and it's a tragedy because it is such a global event, really meant to bring people together, and it's brought a bunch of division. But you know what we do here? Let's start with prayer, if you'd be so kind to lead us.
Yes, Lord, we do. We thank you for the great Eucharistic Congress that took place earlier this month, and that was an important thing because it prepared us also for the fact that not all love you in the Eucharist. The terrible assault on your dignity and the dignity of the Holy Liturgy. But Lord, we thank you because you did prepare us. You told us these things would happen, that if the world would hate us, and that we would have to learn to endure that. So do help us, Lord, to be outspoken as we should be, but also kind and charitable, and being willing to make reparations ourselves. And we make all these prayers now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, all right. A lot of Catholics and Americans in general do not know, when they hear of Gaza, Palestine, or Palestinians, they think only of Arabs and Muslims. And there are actually Palestinians who are also, they're Arab, yes, but they're Christian. Some are Orthodox, and some are Roman Catholic. And they are in a minority, but they're not without good number. And that in Gaza, there is actually a Roman Catholic parish somewhere in the northern part of the city, and or the Gaza Strip, we'll call it. And it is run by a religious order that is affiliated with the Order of Religious Sisters and Priests in our diocese here in Washington, that of the Institute of the Divine Word. And they have the priest, the IVF priest, and also we also have the sisters who go by the general name, the Servidoras, or the servant sisters of the Lord and the Virgin of Matara. And they're wonderful. It's a wonderful order. They're growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, our sisters have just huge numbers in their convent, but also in the novitiate and the juniorate. They're filled to capacity. Wonderful order, and they're all over the world. And one of the places they are is in Gaza. There's a parish they have there. So I want to get into this article. It's from our Sunday Visitor, and it starts out this way. And since his return to Gaza City, Holy Family Parish in May, Father Gabriel Romanelli has been working to organize educational and pastoral activities for parish youth. And they've been out of their classrooms since October 7th, when the Hamas invaded parts of Israel and killed, as you know, many people. This then led to, in effect, a war. And this war has raged now over 9 months. Now, in Gaza, their St. Joseph Educational Project is for the 150 Christian youth that are sheltering currently at the parish compound. It's also nearby the Greek Orthodox Church compound. And so these communities have kind of come together, but they're also working on their own. And the project initially began, it was suspended briefly during additional airstrikes that took place in early July. And that strike, as you might recall, did hit Holy Family School, which is their school. It was operating as a shelter, and it claimed the lives of 4 people. All right. Now, since that attack, Sunday Visitor News has tried to contact the parish to ask about the 500 people that are still sheltering on the premises of the church and so on. What we do know is that classes resumed July 22nd. Father Romanelli confirmed with parish teachers who are also sheltering in the parish compound, and they're leading classes in various settings. They're including inside of a gazebo and a veranda and different parts of the church's grounds, and along with our sisters of the Incarnate Word. So a few weeks ago, he said we had to suspend the project because of the situation was very dangerous. Now, Father Romanelli is originally from Argentina, as are many members of this order, but as I say, they're from all over the world, really. It's a worldwide order now. It was founded in Argentina by a Father Buela, who died recently, and it's a very flourishing order, as I say. And he was joined on his return by Father Carlos Ferrero, who's a provincial superior in the order. They went out to Gaza, and they've been ministering, there's together there, and with a couple of the religious sisters and one other priest. The project that they're doing now is temporary. The priest said they hope to be able to have a more formal return to their school building and so on in August. And they're searching for ways, if they can't move there, to create proper classrooms and so on. But right now the school is being used as a shelter, and it's deemed by all that that's probably the better use for it right now. It's a greater need. Now, because of that, though, the parish hasn't been able to really get in and assess any of the damages that 2 airstrikes caused to it. It looks at some level to be kind of superficial, but it could be more serious, as you know. Buildings are fragile things if they're hit in the wrong places. Now, of course, there was a lot of criticism of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and what they did in shelling the school that was theoretically a shelter. But they accuse Hamas of embedding itself among civilians, and that they claimed that the school complex was being used as a militant hideout. And they also they said that weapons and things were being housed there. And of course, these allegations go back and forth. I don't know what to make of them. I'm just reading you what's being told here. And again, Father's response to this, the school's about a 10-minute drive from the parish, so it's not right next to the parish, where most of the Christian community has been sheltering. So there's a little bit of a distance as well. And he says, we don't have any of our people there in Holy Family School, that is. So we honestly don't know what's going on there. And he and the Patriarch of Jerusalem and all are all being very careful to avoid taking a lot of sides on this. It isn't the Catholic way. And this is a very complicated situation with Hamas, which arguably I think is a terrorist organization. And it is also, calls itself, and I think probably is, the government of the Palestinian people out there. It's sad that that's true. And they haven't held elections in years. They were voted in some many years ago, and they haven't held any elections or anything since. It's, we are your leaders forever, And so there are a lot of things that it's hard to get to the truth of. Do the Palestinians support Hamas? Do all of them? Do some of them? These are complicated issues. It's kind of chicken and egg, the whole thing over there in the Holy Land, And I think that we Americans need to be very, very careful to not just simply remain neutral, but before we draw quick conclusions, just because we like one side or another, this tells us more about our politics and what's really going on. And again, I think one of the things that most Americans do not know or ever think about is that there are Christians among the Palestinians. And that shouldn't change necessarily the overall moral parameters of what Israel's done or what Hamas has done. But at the end of the day, just realize that we like to simplify things, and we sort of have to, but we are simplifying. Be careful. So again, the Latin Patriarchate and this priest and all the other priests aren't taking huge sides. They're not out there shaking their fist at Israel or any of these things. They're encouraging people to stay safe and trying to provide them opportunities to shelter and have food and other things. And that's the best they can do in this situation. So the Latin Patriarchate, Father Pizzaballa, Bishop Pizzaballa, I think what's holding them together is their focus on faith and hope. The communal pastoral activities and gatherings for various age groups that are organized by the priests there takes their minds off the daily miseries. And when you see their pictures on social media, you see a happy community. Inside, they're highly traumatized. But the activities focusing on faith have helped the community for the time being. And so, a difficult period for them. And it says, in a statement issued July 19th, the bishops condemned all forms of violence and urged the international community always to uphold peace and actively to engage and put an immediate end to the war. All right. And again, they do believe that the solution is two states, the two-state solution. All right, well, listen, Matthew, maybe when we come back, I'm going to get some of your take on this, too, and then we'll take up another topic. We'll look at the question of the Catholic trade school that's opening when we return.
Arm yourself for the daily spiritual battle. Visit St. Michael's Armory for beautiful sacramentals, recast antique metals and religious jewelry, and our exclusive sterling silver and wool brown scapulars. Take up these means to strengthen your soul and arm yourself well for the battle of life. stmichaelsarmory.com. That's stmichaelsarmory.com. Spiritual armor for the battle of life.
Hey, Keith Downey here, host of Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm encouraging you to listen to Morning Joy this week. Dave Palmer is going to be filling in for me while I'm traveling. And if you've heard him on our Tuesday segments, you know that he is brilliant and entertaining and full of truth and joy. He's got some great guests to talk to this week, plus all of the regular segments, including the news and the daily scripture. Listen to Morning Joy every weekday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Central here on this radio station.
Welcome back to The Quest, an extraordinary journey where every step brings us closer to discovering God's love for us. Want to join the conversation? Give us a call at 877-757-9424.
And we are back. And I know, Matthew, we talked about this whole situation in Gaza before, but I wonder if you had any thoughts on what we just heard and your own thoughts on what's going on there.
Well, I'm certainly hopeful about the whole thing. We've spoken about this, I think, a couple times on the program. And, I can't help but think just back to the season of COVID tide where things got really messed up for students. And, I'm hoping that it's, war is certainly worse than, being forced to wear masks and move your desk 6 feet apart. But I'm sure there's really some disruptive learning going on there. So, I'm hopeful that they can get back to some level of normalcy. And, I'm just really praying for them. But I'm also very excited about your article that you picked about the trade schools for Catholic schools, because speaking of about the so-called pandemic situation, I remember everyone was kind of flooding to my local Catholic school for that because they weren't satisfied what was going on with the we'll call it mainstream education system. And so I think trade schools is hope for the future. So, I think that Catholics need to get with the program here and be a great alternative for that. And it sounds like we found a place that's doing that.
Yeah, out in Illinois, in the Diocese of Springfield, they're going to be taking an old monastery and kind of retooling it, at least part of it, for a Catholic trade school. And as you point out, I think a lot of people are very fed up and disgusted and discouraged with typical colleges today. We have some good Catholic colleges out there. I'm not trashing all colleges, but generally speaking, I think it says here at the beginning of the article that the cost of attending a four-year college has increased 180%. I think it's got to be more than that. But anyway, all I can say is that, it cost me $800 a semester at George Mason University. I mean, you write a check for that today. And that was back in the 80s. It's a while ago, but nevertheless, it was, my gosh, and I think it's like $60,000, $70,000 to go to some of these big schools now. And frankly, it's very frustrating to me that there's talk about all this government assistance when these big colleges like Harvard, Yale, Notre Dame, Georgetown have these endowment funds for $60, $70 billion. Let some of that money loose. Help those students who are locked in all the debt you locked them into for their overrated degrees, and they still haven't gotten some good jobs with. So again, I digress from our main argument here, but it's part of the background that people are fed up with being pushed into these basically what have become ideology camps and indoctrination centers for the woke left, and they come out probably dumber than they went in. And in many of these places, and they also come out less disciplined because you spend 4 or 5 years kind of goofing off, and you don't have to go here, do that, and pretty much everybody affirms you. And then you go to the job board, and they want you to show up in the morning, believe it or not, before 10, and so on. So all that said, I've always been a big fan of trade schools, even since when I went to high school. I went to Garfield High School here in the Woodbridge, Dale City area of a suburb of Washington. That was a huge school. We had 3,500 kids in that school. Now, upstairs were all the usual pre-college kind of classes, all your math, science, literature, English, you name it. But downstairs was basically a trade school. You could learn auto repair. You could learn bricklaying and sheetrock, electrical, plumbing. You could learn also stenography. I took drafting. I learned how to do, mechanical drawing and all that. Some of the girls often took the cosmetology. They took typing and nursing. All these things were given so that you could come out of high school back in 1979 when I graduated with a workable skill if you wanted to. And not everybody did go to college or was expected or pressured to go to college. But that began to change rapidly through the 80s, 90s, and so on. And everyone needs to go to college. And it became, I think, kind of a racket. And they had this sort of inelastic demand. And these colleges began to, I think, charge much more and more and more. And, okay, enough said. That's all the background. So, we also know, though, as we look at meanwhile, during all this time, skilled trades like plumbing, electrical, construction are facing labor shortages. You ever tried to get a plumber to come to your house lately, Matthew? I mean, I don't know about you, but I to get a plumber or an electrician, it's like, I'll see you I can see you the 15th of the month. You're like, well, I got a leaking pipe now, And they're paid well. So there is certainly a shortage, and these are good skills. These are skills people really need. They don't need to have you come to their house and talk to you about climate change. You need someone to fix your leaking pipes and your car that's falling to pieces. That's great stuff. They can make a hammer sing. They can look under the hood of that car and know exactly what to do. I am amazed at these people, and I have a great reverence for them, and they work hard. And they're paid, but a lot of them are paid quite well. You can earn a good amount of money now in these trades, and I think they should. They should, and so therefore the trade schools are beginning to sort of re-up, so to speak. I'm happy to know that at my high school they still have that kind of trade school in the lower floors. They've always had it. But a lot of schools got rid of that stuff and wanted to push everybody into college. So anyway, now we see that in Springfield, Illinois, a new Catholic trade school that aims to recover the dignity of skilled labor while also forming students intellectually and spiritually without saddling them with lots of student debt. These are the students of the San Damiano College for the Trades will receive technical instruction and on-the-job training in their trade of choice. As well as some liberal arts, they'll obtain a liberal arts associate degree, which is a 2-year degree, and spiritual formation. They'll be encouraged to grow in their faith and so on. This is Kent Lasnowski, the school's founding president, told, I'm reading from an article at The Pillar. The college is in the process of being approved to operate in the state of Illinois and hopes to welcome its first students next year, 2025. The first year of courses introduce students to each of the various trades that are offered: carpentry, electrical work, roofing, church restoration, tree care, landscaping. And there are plans of expanding offerings to include masonry, plumbing, HVAC, which is, most of you know, is air conditioning and heating, welding and fabrication. So these are great, important trades that are very, very necessary. I've got my niece is married to a young man who's been struggling a little bit to find work, and I said, man, you go over there with your brothers and learn welding. You're going to make some good money. It's out there. See. Now again, the students who choose union trades will be able to apply for apprenticeships and with the labor unions as they begin their second year, and those who choose non-union trades will receive additional technical training from various companies and so on that have agreed to work and provide training. Meanwhile, the college classes will follow kind of a classical liberal arts curriculum featuring theology, philosophy, and the humanities. So there'll be a 2-year degree. We're not talking about a 4-year liberal arts degree, but a 2-year. And so they're going to be well-rounded. They're coming out knowing a trade, but they also are being trained a little bit in the way education used to, namely it trained you to think. I mean, it wasn't so much that you went to college to learn specifically a trade in the old days. You went there to be formed in the basic art of thinking, problem solving, and how to how to be resourceful. You see, and I don't know, Matthew, what was your degree? Did you go to college?
I did go to college, but then I left. I was
good.
studying philosophy and theology.
Right.
It was at a Catholic college that hated Catholicism and
dear.
loved Eastern religions. And I was a pretty good musician at that time. So I said, "Why am I paying all this money?" And
To have my faith taken from me.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I had gone to a Jesuit high school where they did it really right. So then I went to a Jesuit college thinking it was going to be the same thing, except there was girls there, and that wasn't quite the case. So I left college and hit the road 2 weeks later with a professional band, and the rest was history.
All right.
So I feel like I saved myself a whole bunch of money, and I love this story. I hadn't read the whole article, so I was thinking, oh boy, some of these people could do church restoration. And when you list that was one of the focuses, I said,
That's
oh
it.
man, this is the game plan right here. We're going to restore all the churches, and then we're going to take over all the trade unions, and then I mean, you want to talk about making America great?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good plan. My
No,
son,
I have the hardest time finding just ordinary things like carpenters and painters and it is just agonizing. Yeah. So,
I have a 14-year-old son. He's interested in we have some shipyards in my area, so he's interested in learning how to do some welding and building Navy ships, and maybe not even do that his whole life, but just that for a while. I said that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'd imagine you need some youthful strength to do that kind of welding.
Absolutely, yeah.
Put two pieces of a ship together here. Yeah. I know it's not that simple. All right, but good. I will have to quiz you further on your musical career later on.
Oh boy. Okay, that's.
We'll get back to the article here for a minute. There's a couple of other places that have opened with similar things in the church. Harmel Academy in Grand Rapids, Michigan opened its doors in 2021. The College of St. Joseph the Worker in Steubenville is slated to open this fall. And St. Kateri College in Gallup, New Mexico plans to open in 2025 as well. All three say they're going to offer a combination of education in the trades, liberal arts, and Catholic formation. And hallelujah. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I've been waiting for. And I can tell them, to quote a well-known politician, and rework his quote, "You are the ones we've been waiting for." So this is wonderful news, and I think it's important because I think sometimes we've gone in our American economy heavily towards what we might call it both the service industries, but also rather abstractions. Lots of thinking professions which are needed. I don't say they're not needed, and some people should go to college. But I think that we've lost just that plain old honest work. I'm going to tell you right now, Matthew, if I was not a priest, I would love to be a builder in the building trades. In fact, one year I was dating a girl in high school, and her family was building a house. So I built a house one summer, and I learned so much. I learned all the things you can, learn. How to run wires and, wire switches and, spackle and paint and, all that. I was like, wow, And I love building. And when I'm really getting freaked out, I just kind of buy a model and build it. Something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because the work I do is very open-ended. It's
Sure.
It's when do you stop saving souls and starting with your own? I mean, it's an open-ended work, but every now and again it's nice to go and do something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then be able to look back and say, I did that. And I can look around this parish and see things that I've repaired. There's some trees I planted back in 1995. Gosh, they got to be 60 feet high now. Big, huge maple trees. They were little saplings. I put them in the ground. I did that, I mean, God did it, but you know what I mean. And I painted it, and I've repaired things. I installed. Of course, I've restored a lot of the church here. I didn't personally do that. I mean, that required a good artist. But I mean, I really feel good about those physical things have a place too in life. A lot of the other stuff, theology and ideas and politics and back and forth and ideas, have their place, and they're important. But I think so is just good old plain honest sweat equity work. And you see you left a little blood and sweat in the location. I would also like to say, as someone who's done a lot of physical labor in his life, this is a corollary to Murphy's Law I'm about to give you. Here it is. For the successful completion of any task involving tools, it is necessary to bleed at least once. Okay, so you're going to cut, you're going to get a cut or a scrape, and it's just part of the work. So again, what we want to see here is that we're hoping not only to give people trades in these Catholic schools that are being founded, but also to work with their intellect as well as their souls. Teach them to be good Catholic men and women. Teach them the truths of faith and basic philosophy and thinking and logic. And wow, that's pretty good stuff, All right. Well, listen, when we return, I want to talk about the case of the disappearing Vatican survey. We'll talk a little bit about that when we return.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. President Biden and Vice President Harris are promising changes to the U.S. Supreme Court. Some say ideas like proposing term limits are either electioneering propaganda or just the latest expression of animosity by Mr. Biden for Justice Clarence Thomas. Others say the proposals are unlikely to take hold. Florida state attorneys have won civil court cases against abortion activists protesting the end of federalized Roe v. Wade abortions. They vandalized pregnancy support centers. They will pay $1,000 to each victim and have pled guilty to federal felony charges. This is Life News Radio. When officials tally this election, the results matter, but your participation matters more. God will see the souls that respond to the evils of abortion and to a culture of death. When you have a chance to vote, your participation is a moral obligation. History will record your participation, and that is something you can tell to your children and grandchildren. Get informed, think well, and vote for a culture of life. Pro-life advocates working with precise Canadian abortion pill adverse effects records say in the 7 years since its introduction there, 100 women have been severely harmed. 1 woman has died. And materialism and abortion Teach young people that nothing matters, that children are disposable. Texas Right to Life says it has seen 4 newborn abandonments in 1 week, with one child not surviving. What young people need to know and tell one another as a reflection of their own and their child's inherent dignity is that abandonment is a crime, but surrender of a child at a hospital or fire station is not. That is met with compassion and understanding. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
You're listening to The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith. Have a question or something to share? Call the show live at 877-757-9424.
Yeah, and okay. We are back. I may have jumped my prompt there, Mr. Producer. Hey, Matthew, we already got the number. I'll repeat it one time, but 877-757-9424. But maybe you could tell them a little bit, remind us where we can find show notes and podcasts and different things.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Before I get into that, I want to say that we're back on Twitter. So we'd been streaming on Twitter, and during the it didn't happen right away, but over time, as Mr. Musk took over, no third-party posting was allowed. So we've bucked up our $8 a month for premium status. We got our blue check mark on the Guadalupe radio channel, so you can find us there, and we're definitely back. That's where we have seems like the most viewers, which is quite interesting. In terms of the show links, you can find them on the streams. So as of today, we are on Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Apparently, we're on TikTok, but I don't know anything about TikTok, so I haven't looked there. But in theory, we're there, and they're getting the same metadata from the stream, so it should have the links there. You can go to grnonline.com. You can find our podcast player. Just search for The Quest, and embedded in the show notes will be the links. And that includes if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you enjoy podcasts. So pretty much most places you find the audio or the video, look for the description, and you're going to see the show links there.
That's it. All right. Well, here in The Quest, we try to look at some things that are in the news that aren't just in the news, but maybe put a little bit of a Catholic flavor or spin. So we started out by talking about Gaza, and most people talk about Gaza more through the lens of their own political points of view. But I think we want to remember there's human beings there, and some of them are also, our brother and sisters who are Catholics and Christians. And that shouldn't make us, necessarily a lot more concerned, but, there are affinities that pique our interest. And not every Palestinian, one of my best priest friends, in fact, my very best friend, Father Michael Salah, he's a Palestinian. He's a Catholic priest. And so, again, all of these are ways of saying that there is a diversity, a Catholic way of seeing these things that's a little more diverse and so on. And then we took a look at the question of trade schools. Now, I didn't give you, these are Catholic trade schools that are opening. And so again, the beauty here is that it's bringing back, I think, an increased sense of dignity to what we might call ordinary daily work that isn't really highfalutin up there, chemistry and, rocket science, but it's the stuff that we all really need and depend on. I got to get that. I don't need a rocket scientist right now. I need to get someone, I don't need a poet. I need someone to repair my faucet, okay? And there's something beautiful about that. And our Lord was a tekton, huh? He was, the Greek word tekton doesn't mean necessarily carpenter. He was a builder. So he probably was a good stonemason. He probably knew how to, plumb a wall. He probably knew also how to do some whatever rudimentary kinds of plumbing they had in those days. They all had mikvahs, baths in their house, and they had to get water in and out of that. They had, he was certainly a carpenter as well. But I'm sure basically he was a man of the working trades, and he was a tradesman, we'll call him, huh? A tekton in Greek. Okay, so bless the Lord. Now I want to turn to the case of the vanishing survey. This is, I got an article here from CNA and Catholic News Agency. It says, this is from July 29th, I guess that's yesterday. It says, the Vatican was criticized by online commentators over the weekend for swiftly deleting an online poll that reflected poorly on the Synod on Synodality. Originally posted on Friday to the social media accounts of the office facilitating the Synod, the poll asked, do you believe that Synodality as a path to conversion and reform can enhance the mission and participation of all the baptized? Well, first of all, stop writing run-on sentences, all right, when you ask a question. Make it brief, to the point. Do you believe that the mystific margins of the, and so there's a lot of jargon and stuff that gets generated these days, strangely, by the very people in the church who say we got to stop talking in all these, church euphemisms and things. Well, who knows what the word synod means, including bishops and priests? I don't exactly know. I'm still trying to figure it out. But anyway, so respondents can only answer yes or no to this question. Let me read it one more time. Do you believe that synodality, again, whatever that means, we have some ideas, but who knows? Do you believe that synodality is a path of conversion from what? And reform can enhance the mission and participation of all the baptized, yes or no? 88% responded no.
Oops.
No, I don't know, Matthew. I think that somebody kind of hijacked the, or let's just say it appeared more on conservative Catholic sites than maybe the more liberal one. I don't know.
I think people just read that run-on sentence and they're like, I don't know what this is all about. I'm just going to say no.
Yeah. That's right. Or they should have answered it. They should have given three possibilities: yes, no, or please clarify.
Uh-huh.
I think part of the path to conversion has to start with intelligibility, and so on. Anyway, it goes on. It goes on to say, the article here, the low levels of support for synodality, it's a novel theological concept. I'll say, we never used this word until a couple of years ago. Anyway, it means synodality means, quote, journeying together. It comes as a multi-year global consultative process for focusing on the topic as it comes to a close in the Vatican this October. Okay, there were about 136,000 views, so this is no small number of people who saw it, and about 7,000 people submitted their vote within a day, and the poll was live on that channel. And again, Facebook also, an additional 780 people. That kind of shows you what's going on with Facebook. It's sort of fading, and things like X, Twitter, and some of these other things, TikTok, stuff I can't keep up with it all. But is kind of more there. But 780 people cast their votes on Facebook, and again, similar results. It was pretty discouraging results. So suddenly the post disappeared. Imagine that. However, some users were able to screenshot the image of the poll results before the Synod office removed it. And you can, if you go to this article, you can find it at the various sites that Matthew mentioned. It'll give you a quick, you can click over to that thing and see the screenshot, and it's all there. Yes, 12%. No, 88. Not even close, y'all. Not even close. So again, we have that. Now, I don't want to be too snarky. I think, though, that I hope that they don't just write it off as just there go those crazy American right-wingers again. I hope they really listen, because I think it's pretty clear to most people I've talked to, including Brother Priest, that this whole concept of synod and synodality hasn't really registered. Most of us, first of all, aren't paying that much of attention. We've actually got parishes to run, we priests, and lay people have lives to live, and all this focus on meeting and talk about meeting and journeying together. Remember when this first was introduced by the Holy Father, we kept hearing about the road to Emmaus. But I find it amazing that people don't really think through the whole story of the road to Emmaus. Yes, they were journeying together, but that was a couple of hours, and by the end of it, Jesus is saying to them, "Oh, stupid and foolish and slow to believe everything that the apostles." Well, Jesus, those don't sound like welcoming words. Those don't sound like, journeying and accompanying. Because you see, if the real understanding, if Emmaus is the best example of this, and that's a beautiful story. Jesus listened, yes, he listened, but then he had something to say, he taught. And the idea of being a listening church is a nice idea, but at some point we have to say, okay, I've listened enough, now here's the teaching. And this is too often not what they mean by synodality. It's just listen, 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 listen. And we've seen how the Pope himself, not just the Pope, but other offices in Rome, have often kind of collided with their own notion of synodality. For example, going completely off the synod process and just issuing that document, supplicans, fide supplicans, or I forget what it was called now, but on the whole question of outreach to so-called gay unions and so on. This was supposed to be part of a synodal process, then why did the Vatican just kind of sidetrack all that and issue a separate statement that offended a great number of Catholics, and not just those who were conservative, including the African bishops, but also those who had been saying, wait a minute, we were supposed to be talking about this at the next meeting, and he's just taken it off the agenda. The latest schema that came out about a month ago, called the working document, doesn't mention a number of articles that they wanted to discuss. So there's some, shall we say, control being exhibited on the agenda. The agenda is being decided beforehand by the powers that be. Doesn't sound like what I thought synodality was supposed to be. So again, it's all very confusing to those who are paying attention, but to most who aren't paying attention, synodality, what's that? You know, every now and again, Matthew, I think I've been clear when I get up and I make an announcement in church. Please note, anyone who's interested in becoming a Catholic, that the RCIA program will begin starting next week in the rectory basement. Please sign up at the back. And then someone will come to me after Mass and say, Father, I'm interested in becoming a Catholic. I said, and I thought to myself, well, was I not clear? I mean, I'm going to be friendly, but I mean, was I not clear? No, I wasn't. RCIA? So I said, well, there are RCIA classes. He said, what are those? Oh, I thought I was clear. See, that's church speak, right? We just pass around catechesis, CCD, you know, all this kind of stuff. We use all this jargon. And a lot of people come to our churches, they don't have a clue what we're talking about. And I catch myself. So I'm not trying to criticize Rome or the Pope for this in a way that I won't criticize myself. And what's a rectory? Where is that? Oh, it's in the rectory. Well, you don't know what the rectory? No, I don't know what a rectory is. And, you know, I don't want to get snarky with this possible convert. Say, oh, I'm so sorry. I tell you what, you got a few minutes? If you can wait for me in the back of church, I'd love to talk to you, you know, and just talk English, you know. And I know that I don't want to completely abandon our vocabulary either. There are important words that we need to teach people what they mean, like transubstantiation, for example. But at the end of the day, come on, you know. So I think that I hope the Vatican doesn't just take this down, but that they do take it to heart and they say, you know, we're not connecting the average Catholic on this, or just with the average person who reads our stuff even on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. So again, just another way of saying we can get kind of annoyed, and you know, when we feel like we haven't communicated, and you know, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's saying, well, this is a teaching moment for me, for us, and maybe it's a good thing to try and you know, how do we speak to people and so on. So let's take a couple of folks who are making some comments on terms of how to interpret this. An ex-user, Mathil Hazel, an English Catholic working on projects and so on, criticized the removal of the post, saying, oh dear, the Synod poll on synodality was deleted. Doesn't seem very synodal, does it? And in a separate post, perhaps the experts at the 2024 Synod participants will be forwarded the results. However, Jonathan Lewis, I know Jonathan, he's a good man. Jonathan Lewis, who works for Catholic Technology Company, offered a different take on the online poll, arguing that the results said more about respondents in the Synod than synodality. Based on top comments in the poll results, this poll reiterates the reality of North American resistance to synodality compared with the global church. And again, I like Jonathan. I don't agree with him on that, you know. This is a brand new concept that's been foisted on us. Of course, people are going to be a little resistant, you know. And
I think they could have phrased things in a way that would have had a lot of positive support. But because they used the wishy-washy language, no one was into it.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
there's something that appealed to all those tens of thousands of people at the Eucharistic Congress.
Amen.
And if they had just tapped into some of that, you know, that, I don't want to say energy, but tapped into some of that, the language of, you know, the future of the church, people would have been more positive, I think.
Well, we're going to come back. We have another topic. We're going to talk about something in Arizona, but we'll also maybe talk a little more about this as well when we return.
This is Franciscan Media's Saint of the Day for July 30th. Today we celebrate Blessed Solanus Casey. Before entering a Detroit seminary in 1896, Barney Casey had worked as a logger, a hospital orderly, a streetcar operator, and a prison guard. Those experiences put him in touch with ordinary, everyday people struggling with life's ups and downs. Those experiences also prepared him for his own struggles, beginning with seminary studies, which he found arduous. He was finally ordained a Capuchin Franciscan priest, but on the condition that he not hear confessions or preach formal doctrinal sermons. Undaunted, Father Solanus went about doing the priestly duties permitted him. After serving in New York, he returned to Detroit, where he was porter and sacristan at St. Bonaventure's for 20 years. His Wednesday services for the sick attracted huge crowds. Hundreds came to see him daily and receive his blessing or his guidance. He was devoted to the poor, including those who came to the soup kitchen established by the Capuchins during the Depression. An estimated 20,000 people passed by his coffin following his death in 1957. Father Solanus was beatified in Detroit in 2017. There's more about the saints, along with inspiration and Catholic resources, at our website, saintoftheday.org. From Franciscan Media, this has been Saint of the Day.
This is The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Share the show with a friend. You can find us on social media. Want to listen again? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts.
All right, we are back, and I hope you will listen to us on the various podcasting places and catch us there if you can't catch us live. All right. You know, getting back to this topic before we go on to the next topic, I want to say there's some other things here in the article I think that are worth quoting. It says here that throughout his pontificate, Pope Francis repeatedly called for, quote, a listening church that encourages pastors and the faithful to walk and work together to create a church that's open, welcoming, and missionary in its outlook. All right, so why then take down the survey? I'm not even all that concerned they took it down. But the point is that I hope that they're willing to listen. And maybe it reached a skewed audience, but I don't know. I think most Catholics I know, and I'm not talking about people who are, into the traditional Latin Mass, I'm talking about ordinary Catholics, but they don't quite understand what this is all about. They're not paying that much attention. I think, some of us in this kind of work, Matthew, we're above average. We pay attention, we're listening, we're plugged into all that stuff. But I want to say, for better or worse, most Catholics are kind of, they got lives, and there are other things on their mind, too, and they don't just spend all day listening to whatever the latest thing is on whatever. Now, they should. I'm talking about EWTN and GRN and all of the plugins to, the great Catholic media that we have today. But that said, I think we have to be realistic. And the other thing I think, though, we have to see is that I do think that even among those who do have some awareness, it's hard to connect with this whole thing. And it's vague. Let's listen. What is a listening church? Well, I get the idea. There's a place to listen. But Jesus didn't say, go therefore into all the nations and listen to them. He said, go forth and teach. Now, I do think that listening is a good preamble to teaching. You need to know, what's the old saying? Answering questions that people are not asking is one of the definitions of boredom. So you listen, you find out, well, where's an entry point? Is there some area here that I can work with to get people kind of on board? And, what is it that rocks your world? What is it that excites you? You find out what their framework is. And then, so there's a place for listening. But I think calling us a listening church is too broad. I think we should always include Jesus' own words, that basically we're not just a listening church, but we're a teaching and a sanctifying church. Our job is to celebrate sacraments and to listen to people in order to teach them. And that's where I think I personally have a lot of trouble with this whole synodality stuff. I don't think they're very clear on these things. And again, the Pope theoretically says I'm free to disagree. And I'm not trying to disrespect him in any way. I just have a little bit of a difference here with him. And look, if he tells me to have a listening session in my parish, I'll do it. But I also want to see it as an opportunity to be a teaching church. And I think that's I think, what we're all wired to do. Okay. Now, another topic, I mentioned to you before, I think it was on Friday, in fact, the last show. I'm concerned somewhat about the pro-life movement at this point, that we haven't really been able to figure out yet. And not that we should have, but I'm not so sure that we're even talking about the fact that have we really figured out the new landscape that we're in? And that we're in a situation where we've got now 50 different battles. What do we need to do? Do we need to still have a national focus and pick and choose certain basic national things that come up on certain states and focus on those 5? Or do we need to have to spend a lot more time training teams to go to work in these 50 different states, and so on? Every state's got a little bit of a different thing. So with that background, there is here an Arizona judge has sides with pro-abortion groups in removing something from an abortion pamphlet that's getting ready for a vote that will take place in Arizona. But the point here is that the term unborn human being is to be replaced with the term fetus. And I'll be honest with you, I know exactly why someone who's pro-choice is going to say, I don't like that phrase, unborn human being. But guess what? That's what you got there. Okay? Now, the word fetus, I know my Latin, and fetus just means little one. It means baby or little one. But in English, it comes across much more abstract than unborn human being or unborn human baby or something like that. So I know why they want to get rid of it. I'm not like, why would they want to get rid of that? I know why. Because it's a little too close to the truth for them. But it is true. Okay. Now, the Coalition for Arizona Abortion Access, which is a pro-choice group, of course, won a decision from this judge on July 26th. We won the publicity pamphlet lawsuit. Arizona voters are now one step closer to having our say and restoring access to abortion in our state. Now, again, what is abortion, you see? Abortion for most people, sadly, is an abstraction. It's a word. It's an issue. But abortion is the killing of a human being in the womb of his mother. And that's what it is. And I think that at some level we've allowed the pro-choice movement to take a lot of these things and turn them into abstractions. Women's health care, all these kinds of things, reproductive freedom, and so on. Choice, but I like choice. I like to be able to choose from, red wine or white wine or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not that I'm against choice. It's just, what is the choice in question? And there's just some things that we're not and shouldn't be free to do, see? So you get the idea. We've often been behind the curve when it comes to defining, describing this issue. We've often been shamed by the pro-choice side when we talk about killing of a human being. We talk about human beings. We talk about, babies in the womb. We often, and I have mixed feelings about it, but, they used to show pictures of lynchings to show this is the ugly reality, y'all. If you don't know what a lynching is, here's what it is. It's what it looks like. And so there are some people who bring out abortion posters that show dismembered fetuses. But that's what it is. That's what it looks like. So while I have mixed feelings about when and how to do that, I think that if they could do that in the battle against slavery as well they should. I think so can we, and under proper circumstances. All right, enough said. But it goes on to say here, according to the Arizona Mirror, Arizona for Abortion Access advocated for the court to order that lawmakers replace the word with the, quote, medically accurate term fetus. There is nothing medically inaccurate about unborn human being. Okay? But at any rate, the Republican legislators and their attorneys argued in a brief that the term unborn human being is based verbatim on what is currently used in Arizona's state law regarding abortion. The pro-abortion advocates' attorneys argued that the term fetus is more impartial and based widely on accepted medical professionals. The Republican lawmakers and attorneys, by the way, if you see a woman who's expecting a child, you don't go up and say, well, how's your fetus doing? You know. So I think this idea that it's a medically accepted term, I don't doubt that. But I don't even think in medical situations, unless you've got these crass doctors who want to perform abortions, they're going to talk to a mother about how's the baby. You know, they're not going to say, how's your fetus? That's terrible medical practice. Bad bedside manner, as the old saying goes, right? Doctors talk in much more tender terms, you see. Anyway, and you get the vision. The pro-abortion advocates argue again, they say that the term fetus is more impartial and widely used and accepted by medical professionals. The Arizona Mirror reported. The Republican lawmakers argued that the medical community supported the phrase unborn human being is irrelevant, or the lack of their support, because the language is used in the state laws. So in other words, all the other state laws in Arizona regarding this matter describe the child in the womb that way. And let's continue to use our legal language. We're not doing something like, trying to bend the definition. We're just using what's right there in the law. Okay. Nevertheless, we lost. Now, It's important because these are the things that we're going to find in every single state, all 50 states. Even states where, like, for example, I said to you on Friday, in Florida, there's an attempt to get a ballot initiative going for the changing of the constitution of that state. And again, language is important. And even in states that are largely restrictive on abortion now, there's going to be a constant battle. Are we ready for that? What are we doing in the pro-life movement? And that's what I'm asking us. Well, look, we've talked about a lot of things today, and I just pray that each and every one of you
spreading the splendor
day.
of truth. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network.